Hi, I'm Rob Gibbs, director of Time Travel Mater.
Hi, I'm Torben Bullock, the picture editor.
Tony Christoph, production designer.
Well, welcome to Time Travel Mater.
If I'm lying, I'm crying. So we called this a Pixar Laugh-O-Gram in honor of Walt Disney's original studio.
So a while back, Scott Morris, one of our story artists, boarded a little short that never got made, but it was really charming, where Mater goes back in time. And John Lasseter really liked that idea that Mater would go back in time and witness the history. So John wanted to actually tie in Cars Land at Disneyland and the beginnings of Radiator Springs. So when he is transported back in time, that's where he ends up. I think an earlier version, he gets struck by lightning, and that sends Mater back in time.
Right.
One of our story artists, Valerie Lapointe, came up with the idea that this clock falls on Mater's air filter, and he sneezes and goes back in time. So, whenever Mater tells one of these tall tales, it's a story that actually happened, but this is his version of the retelling it.
And when Mater thinks about past events, he thinks about it in the context of the films that he's seen or the television shows that he's watched. So when he goes back in time and he arrives in the past, it's in a early silent cinema, sepia tone wash.
Well, howdy.
So when he first goes back in time, we start in 1909 when Stanley first arrives in Ornament Valley. In the early days of cinema, all the cameras were cranked by hand, and it was very difficult to crank them consistently. So you get this kind of flickering because there's a little bit more light is let in as the crank goes slower or faster.
As we were going through our lighting reviews, my instinct is to perfect the lighting as much as we always do it here at Pixar. But with the sepia tones and with the black and white, you kind of had to go with the imperfection of the technology of the time. I always had to kind of stop myself from making notes that would make it perfect in a 21st century kind of way.
I think the original story, Stanley was a prospector and he discovered the spring and set up a town. But I thought it'd be much more convenient if he was a traveling radiator cap salesman. That way he has his caps with him.
Hey, Stanley, there's a card.
And this is the first time we've actually seen Stanley alive. He's always been just a bronze statue. So working with the studio in Vancouver, we had to figure out how everything works. His little menu of radiator caps there, where he keeps his caps. I love his Cap-O-Matic.
It's so cool, the Cap-O-Matic, especially all those different designs you came up for all the different radiator caps.
So we didn't have a lot of cars of that era.
Oh yeah, we needed some background characters. Personally, I love old cars, so I spent some time just drawing old cars, and we showed a bunch of different designs to John Lasseter to see which ones he would respond to. Of course, his answer was yes. So we ended
all
up...
of them.
We built about almost a dozen characters. And I tried to come up with a story for every one of them, like a backstory, like something. I mean, there's so much detail in those characters that probably would never be able to see. But hopefully people will get to enjoy them in a form of toys.
Yeah. It was really fun working with folks in Canada creating this time travel effects.
And then when you get into this 1920s era, this black and white they've done is amazing. It's not the film noir of the 1940s, which is a lot of very sharp edges, but still a slightly soft but more consistent image. For all you film nerds out there, the adding of silver into nitrate film is what enabled you to get lots of really graduated shadows. We also get very inspired by the music of different eras. We thought the music of like Keystone Cops and Laurel and Hardy and the Hal Roach Studios from the teens really felt great for this short. It really inspired us in its small combos.
So also a lot of the dialogue and phrases that we use, we research and try to make it as authentic as possible. So the banter, the back and forth banter between Stanley and Lizzie, we try to keep that, kind of the era.
Hubba, aren't you the cat's pajamas?
My favorite was, applesauce.
Oh, applesauce.
Because that's something that my grandfather, who is, as of this recording, 99 years old, I've actually heard him say. That's a call to my grandfather, Thomas Edward Bullock of Castro Valley, California.
And I love that this is he takes her in to buy her a wedding ring, basically. They fall in love instantly.
Yeah, we call this whole drive their date.
Should know how to treat a girl.
Ah, shucks.
So she merges with this diamond radiator cap. And without actually saying, "Will you marry me?" you just say, "Do you like it?" I do. I really do.
I love it when Rob is so romantic.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And then we move forward into the 1930s, something called the two-strip Technicolor process. They would record separate images onto a piece of film of the red and blue-green spectrums, and it gives you this kind of neat pastel-y sort of look.
So much fun. Oh, I'm hoping people will get married in Cars Land and put
Comfy cabins.
Lizzie and Stanley wedding cake toppers on their cake.
They're building Cars Land down at Disneyland, and to see it done in real, actually, not just in CG, not just in a computer, with the same degree of attention to detail was very, very inspiring.
Please step aside.
I love that we were so insistent on being as authentic as we were.
Yeah.
So that when you go to the park and you've seen the short, you'll remember it looking exactly like it does. Our version of Stanley's Oasis, however, is a brand new version of it because that's when he first built it. What you'll see at Cars Land is the charming ghost town version of Stanley's Oasis. And thus, history is made.
Restored.
Restored.
First question is, if they hadn't gone back in time, would it have happened at all? Did they create the history by going back in time?
It's really confusing, actually.
Don't think about it too much.